Welcome my sky-high friends, to another Cannabis Chronicle. Let's soar into outer orbit, look into the expanse of space behind our eyelids and settle in for these fables that will surely have you soon floating away. Next listen a story, a grandparent's awakening. I'll be the first to admit, I never thought I'd be telling this story. You see, I'm from the generation that knew marijuana as dope, the drug that ruined lives and destroyed families. I was born in 1950, went to college in the late 60s, and by the time the 80s rolled around, I had formed a solid opinion. Weed, pot, grass, whatever you called it, was bad news. In my eyes, it was the root of all those late-night tragedies, overdoses, and the kind of rebellion I wanted to shield my family from. For decades, I stood firm in that belief. I watched anti-drug campaigns roll out on television and nodded in agreement. Even as the conversation shifted and people began talking about medical marijuana, I couldn't bring myself to see it differently. In my mind, dope was dope. There was no way something that tore people apart could ever be considered medicine. But, as the saying goes, life has a funny way of humbling you when you least expect it. That moment came when my grandson, Alex, fell sick. He's in his 20s now, bright, sharp as a tack, with his whole life ahead of him. But he was diagnosed with a condition I couldn't even pronounce, let alone understand. All I knew was that the treatments were multiple harsh surgeries, pills that seemed to make him worse before they made him better. He was suffering, wasting away in front of me, and it felt like there was nothing we could do. That's when my daughter, his mother, brought up medical marijuana. I still remember the look on her face, the way she approached the subject like she was walking on eggshells around me. She knew how I felt. For decades, I had told her and everyone in our family that marijuana was a gateway drug, that it would lead to harder substances. But there she was, telling me that this drug could be the one thing to ease Alex's pain, to bring him some relief when modern medicine couldn't. I wanted to say no. Everything inside me screamed that this was wrong, that we were opening a door we couldn't close. But then I saw Alex, my grandson, barely able to eat, barely able to hold himself up, his face pale and his eyes hollow. He looked at me, and I saw the person I loved most in this world, crumbling under the weight of something I couldn't fight. That's when I agreed. The first time Alex used medical marijuana, I sat in the corner of the room, arms crossed, waiting for something bad to happen. I expected the worst, and I was ready to say, "I told you so," if anything went wrong. But instead, I saw something I hadn't seen in months. Alex smiled. He could eat, he could relax, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he wasn't in constant pain. I don't think I realized how much I had been holding my breath until I saw him breathe easy again. It was a shift that happened slowly, over time. Each time Alex used marijuana, I noticed the change. His quality of life improved. It wasn't a cure, but it gave him the chance to live, to be present, and to feel human again. I found myself questioning everything I had believed for so long. I started reading, researching, things I should have done years ago. And what I discovered shocked me. For decades, I had thought marijuana was the villain. I blamed it for the societal ills I'd seen, the addiction and crime that plagued my generation. But the more I learned, the more I realized the real villain wasn't the plant, it was the misinformation, the stigmas, and the systems that criminalized something that had the potential to help people like my grandson. It was like a veil had been lifted. All those years, I had believed in a narrative that ignored the science, the stories, and the lived experiences of people who had been helped by medical marijuana. And here I was, face to face with undeniable evidence in the form of my own grandchild. Looking back now, I feel a mix of regret and relief. Regret that it took me so long to open my eyes, but relief that I finally did. Alex is doing better. He's not cured, but he's living again. He's able to laugh, to eat, to sleep without waking up in agony. And that, to me, is more than any outdated belief could ever be worth. As the years pass, I've started to talk to other people my age, many of whom still hold onto the old fears about marijuana. Some are open to the conversation, while others aren't. But one thing I know for sure, this is a new age. We're seeing things we never thought we'd see, and it's time to embrace that. The world is changing, and maybe that's for the best. The real villain, I realize now, isn't the plant. It's the closed-mindedness that stops us from seeing its potential. It's funny, isn't it? After all these decades, I finally see the truth. And it's my grandson who taught me that.